It's 1 week into the set with Syndra, 2-cost reroll, and Karma dominating the meta. So this is the initial artifact infographic that I made on my Twitter that popped off a bit. You can check it out over there. But most of this still holds true. Today I'm going to show you a more tailored version to the meta and a few of the 4-costs with a lot of the others underperforming. The queen of this patch that all of you already know about, Syndra, just in case you don't know her ability, she conjures a rift that deals magic damage and does 20% shred. This shred is activated after 15 casts, and then enemies adjacent to the target will take additional magic damage. What makes Syndra so broken is that she is a scaling champion where every 30 casts she'll create another rift on an enemy that deals a good amount of damage. So right now the meta is getting an early Syndra with a mana item or components that can build into Shojin. Nashor's Rageblade, pure AP isn't the best on her. And over here you can see that from meta TFT, the snapshot today shows that Syndra actually occupies the 4 top comps in win rate in Emerald Plus. You have 4 different variants that are floating around. The most popular is Vanguard Syndra, where you roll out 7 with a bunch of mages. You have Shapeshifters as your front line, Preservers with Wukong, and you play Rakan, Zillion, Bard, and you even have the Eldritch +1 version of Syndra. People started itemizing Syndra instead of Nami, and it led to a lot of success. And what's broken about Syndra is that she provides so much value to your team. Utility, she does a lot of damage, her front line is super flexible, and as a result, she is dominating the meta, and she's getting nerfed next patch. But right now, abuse her while you can. You can win out with the Syndra too if you have a good front line. Manazane and Gambler's Blade are the best artifacts for Syndra by far. Manazane is extremely good because Syndra wants to cast a lot so that she can scale and get more rifts to do tons of damage, even at 2-star. So Manazane basically allows you to get so many casts per round, at least 5, because the mana does overflow from her ability, and it's the best performing artifact in the data by far. Next to Gambler's Blade, it's a gold generation artifact that has a percentage chance of giving you gold every time a unit attacks. So if you have something like a Gwinsu's opener or a Spear Shojin with the Syndra, it's going to be extremely good because it allows you to farm those gold, which in turn gives your Syndra more attack speed, which will give you more gold in return, which is like a cyclic effect. The artifacts, Zhonya's, RFC, and Mittens aren't broken on Syndra, but they're still extremely good. Zhonya's will give AP and survivability, so Syndra won't get one-shot. Although it isn't attack speed, it's still decent damage, and sometimes the Syndra can clutch up in the corner and just do infinite damage to the enemies. You also have RFC and Mittens. These do have small sample size, but we already know that Syndra's best items will be stuff like Gwinsu's, Nashor's, and Red Buff, along with the mana gen. So it only makes sense that Mittens and RFC, which provide a lot of attack speed, will be not necessarily the best, but good performing artifacts in Syndra because she really likes that attack speed to keep her casting. Here are some of the builds you could do with Syndra with the artifacts. The most important thing is you have Shojin, preferably as your mana item, and then you can mix and match with a bunch of Gwinsu's. So next we have Wukong. Wukong is a flex frontline unit that you'll either see played in Jinx reroll or Preservers. And unfortunately, Jinx reroll isn't really good right now. Even though Sugarcraft is a cool trait, it's not really the sweetest to play because there's so much like Syndra players and 2-cost reroll that it's going to be hard to reach those cash outs. Unless you have 6 Sugarcraft and, you know, max out. But anyways, the other comp you'll typically see him in and rerolled in is, of course, Preserver Syndra, which appeared in China almost a week ago, where basically you play Wukong and all the Preservers to help stabilize you. You roll on 7 for this comp for Wukong 3, and you find that 1-star Karma, Rakan, and you can hold on to as many Syndras as you like and hopefully 3-star her. She's really contested right now, but your job is basically just to, if you can hit Syndra 3, that's really good. If not, just hold on to all the ones you hit and try to hit everything else in your comp. So with Wukong, the artifact that's going to stand out the most is Mogul's Mail. Moguls will give you stacking resistances in gold when your unit reaches 35 stacks. And Wukong actually gains 30% bonus resistances from his passive. So it's just really good synergy. And basically, if you get a opener with Mogul's Mail with an upgraded unit, it's already pretty broken because there's so much gold and tankiness. And if you combine it with Wukong, who's super tanky already, it's going to be one of the best combos in the game. Preservers are going to be important in the build. This is like an example of the comp on level 8 when you hit Morgana. But before that, you can play other stuff as well. Like you can drop Melee or Morgana for decent units like Vex maybe, or maybe even, or just random stuff. But Preservers are really important because of the healing that they give, because Wukong doesn't have inbuilt healing in his kit. He shields every time he ults. And because of this, items like Declaw and Redemption are pretty good on him, as well as Gargoyle Stoneplate, because he's usually played a solo frontline and he gains more resistances. But for other artifacts that are good on him, I would say Eternal Winter, Innervating Locket, and Light Shield Crest are the main ones. Light Shield Crest is pretty unpopular and honestly maybe a bit understated, but it gives 50 armor and MR base, which is pretty good, and then Wukong gains 30% more. So he's gonna get 80 of each from that, and it shields the lowest percent allies, so it's just pretty good synergy. These two are just really good performing items in Wukong for Locket and Winter. Winter is broken, it neutralizes so many carries with the attack speed and stun. And Innervating Locket is good on him because it allows Wukong to cast more, which makes him deal a bit of damage and get some shield, but more importantly, gives him healing, which he doesn't have. And for Wukong, you're not going to be really hard pressed on specific artifacts. If you get a decent tank one like Anime Visage, maybe even Forbidden Idol because he has a shield, or Hull Crusher, it's going to be decent as well because you're solo frontlining him. It's not bad, but the best one by far will be Mogul's Mail. So next we have Kog'Maw, who the second reroll comp, I guess part of the big three of 2-cost reroll right now. And he's played as a duo carry with Tristana while having Nunu as the tank and Rumble. So 4 2-cost units, which makes him really good with 2 healthy. And honestly, this comp isn't the best, but it's decent tempo. And if you're super contested Syndra and have Shojin or Last Whisper 80 items and it's uncontested, you can definitely top 4, even win with broken augments. But for his artifacts, the two that are really good are Fishbones and Manazane. The reason why Fishbones is super good in Kog'Maw is because it allows him to randomly target enemies. You can see over here what Fishbone does. It doubles his attack range and causes each of his attack to target a random enemy. And this guy does a lot of damage 3-star and can actually one-tap units. If you're lucky enough in the fight, you can just tap him. You can build stuff like Shojin Last Whisper. I think Bis Kog'Maw is something like Shojin Last Whisper GS. IE is also fine, but Fishbones is just really good at him. It's his best artifact by far. Manazane is also performing pretty well, and I played it once. It's a common misconception that if you have Manazane, you don't need to build Shojin. But Shojin is totally fine on Kog'Maw because you just want him to cast a lot. Manazane will give him the initial cast, and then Shojin will be able to follow up. But if you don't have that build, it's fine to go IE Last Whisper as well. Kog'Maw's ult is just super important because it's like a trail, and it deals a good amount of damage. So something like Manazane for an attack caster like Kog'Maw is going to be really good. I put Gambler's Blade here because I just think that Gambler's Blade is pretty good. I don't think it's the best on Kog'Maw. If I were to choose someone to put Gambler's Blade on in this comp, I'd put it on Tristana. But if you have an upgraded Kog'Maw and want to farm early and get gold, I would put it on him. Now, this part over here, I'm referring to the Augment Marksman Toolbox. There's an augment that gives you a sniper's focus, and in 3 rounds, it gets a Fishbones. In a meta where Varus is really good, I can see this being pretty decent augment, but its stats aren't the best. Right now, you only played for Kog'Maw, but I looked at the stats, and if you build these 3 items together, Shojin, Fishbones, and Snipers, it's going to be pretty good. Just good synergy, because Snipers will deal more damage the further the unit is from the target, and since you're going to be randomly targeting backline units, it's going to deal a lot of damage. So if you have that somehow, it's pretty good. And for the other artifacts for Kog'Maw, they aren't the worst. Snipers, Infinity Force actually has good stats for him, but I don't think it's like as good as Fishbones. Kog'Maw just likes stats, I guess. But these are just solid 80 items that you can take, and it's not gonna be broken on him, but it's definitely solid options. Collector can farm you money early. Snipers, it's gonna be hard for him to target the backline unless you position him correctly. But if you have this, and Fishbone's pretty good, even as a standalone, it's like whatever. Yeah, that's it for Kog'Maw. For Kog'Maw's adjacent units, I won't talk about them as much. Tristana is a duo carry in Kog'Maw because she fills out the comp perfectly with Blaster and Fairy with Lilia, and Blaster with Rumble. You just put the leftovers on Tristana. Winsu's is a lot better on her because she's an attack speed carry compared to an attack caster. She likes attacking a lot and will do a lot of damage if scaled up. But that makes attack speed items really good on her. Rapid Fire Cannon is pretty good. Wits End. And Infinity Force is also decent on her, I think. I wouldn't worry too much about Tristana because she's someone who is a secondary carry. If you can get these on her, it's good, but if not, whatever. Fishbones is not good on Tristana. So is Collector, because for Fishbones, you want her to target the same thing. It's not like Kog'Maw where she can snipe the backline and do a lot of damage. Tristana's, each instance of her auto attack doesn't do as much damage as Kog'Maw, so it's not really good. Snipers as well, her reach isn't that long. Actually, with Tristana, you want the units to be closer to her, because if the units are close, she's gonna push them away. So yeah, like if you want to get that stun off, it's not that good. And Collectors, whatever. So it's just these items that are pretty good in her. But just if you have a leftover artifact slot or your Kog'Maw's fully equipped, you can put whatever, like any of these. And Nunu is pretty simple. This is not including Sweet Tooth, which I can cover in another video if you guys want, or artifacts for the hero augments. But Nunu is the primary tank in this comp, and he buys the target, heals, and chills the enemies for 3 seconds. You just want to put anything on him. These are the best performing ones, I think. Trenchcoat and Locket have good stats, as well as Enemy Visage, but honestly, any of the tank artifacts should be fine. Winter should be good. Moguls, Hull Crusher. The only one that's pretty grief is something like Forbidden Idol or Unending Despair, because, you know, he doesn't have a shield in his kit, so don't build those. But any of these should be fine on him. Just, if you have an open tank slot or Nunu 3, and then you want tempo, just pick a tank artifact and it should be fine. Next, we have Kassadin. Low-key, I think he kind of fell off in the meta. He's not like the top comp by far, and he can get bursted by Syndra. But what makes him strong is he's a reroll option that can hold stuff like Gwynsus and BT. If you have a bunch of Kassadins early, you can out-tempo the lobby, hit a lot, and it's going to be easy to hit stuff in a 2-cost meta where everyone's rerolling for 2 costs, and potentially top 4 or maybe even top 2 with conditions like broken augments. For example, press the attack, support golems, keepers not today, and Kassadin really gets powerful if you have a +1 for multi-striker, as well as me recommending having a duo carry. Most likely you're gonna reroll Akali as well as Kassadin in the comp, but you can even do stuff like Ashe, Jax, or if you hit it, Kalista too. Honestly, I think Akali 3 is super important to the comp because Kassadin can't really do it alone in late game fights. Okay, so these are the artifacts for Kassadin. I built these in a way where you can see what I would build if you have that artifact on him. Basically, the artifacts will replace whatever is considered BIS for Kassadin in BT plus Gwynsus plus either Quicksilver or Archangels for damage. So the best artifact by far for Kassadin will be Zhonya's. It's not even close. The reason why is that Zhonya's is typically really good on melee bruisers that are also AP. Kassadin is one of them, and as a glass cannon, it helps him a lot because it basically acts as an Edge of Night. At 40% health, you're gonna become invulnerable and untargetable for a bit, but it also gives AP and MR armor, which is something that Kassadin really likes. If you have a decent Kassadin spot and you can rip Zhonya's from Forge or anywhere else, I'd take it. The rest of the artifacts are still really good. I just put all of them here, and they all serve different purposes. I think that Kassadin is one of the most flexible in terms of getting a usable artifact for him. You can see that you have Mittens. Mittens gives attack speed and gives immunity to chill. So try avoiding building Gwynsus if you have Mittens on him. You have Infinity Force, which is just a really good artifact for melee carries in general because it acts as infinite stats, AD, AP, mana, armor, MR, all that stuff. You also have a really good one here with Death's Defiance. It makes him a lot tankier and less likely to die because it gives him lethal damage mitigation. This is your BT replacement, but I don't even hate building BT with this on him. You can build stuff like this, Archangels, Gwynsus, whatever you have. Seeker is also pretty good. Seekers basically gives you stacking armor, MR, and AP when you get a takedown, 15 if they score the kill. And you can imagine, since Kassadin gets a lot of kills and is a hyper carry in this comp, it's going to be really good on him. You also have Wit's End. I think with Wit's End, even though it does give healing, I feel like it's still really good to build BT on him with it. You can build this BT and Gwynsus, or maybe have an Archangels in there somewhere. But it's not going to be the best artifact on him, but it's still pretty solid. And then RC is also a good one because it basically gives him a lot of attack speed, so it's your Gwynsus replacement, but it makes him safe because it gives a lot of hex range with him and the target. And if they have a lot of hex range, Kassadin will just attack like the enemy backline if he gets kills. You can read that RFC. It's pretty unpopular last set. There weren't many holders, aside from Kiana, but every time you get a kill, it increases his range. So these are going to be Kassadin's best artifacts. I think that Zhonya's is the one that's super broken, but the others are definitely really solid, and I recommend trying it on him if you can and have the spot for it. For the last part of this meta report, which I guess is a bit late, there's like 5 days left of the patch, but these combos should hold true no matter if the units are good or not. It just won't be as effective. Basically, 4 costs are in a pretty rough spot. The best ones by far is Karma and Fiora. Karma because you play her with Preservers. You can play her with Syndra, which is OP, and she gives a lot of sustain frontline and does good damage if you pair her with Blue Buff or Morello. Fiora is also pretty good because she's one of the only 4 costs that can do like consistent good damage. She's pretty tanky, and if you play her in a Witchcraft setup or as a flexible unit in general, because her traits are pretty flexible, you don't even need Warrior in her. She's going to be pretty good. And for Kalista, Kalista is played either in vertical multi-strikers as a secondary carry or as a, I guess, primary carry, where you flex her with a bunch of different frontline So yeah, she's pretty solid. I think Kalista is one of the highest capping comps in the game. Problem is getting there, but if you manage to upgrade your legendaries and have a good team around her, she can definitely pop off. You can see over here what the artifacts are. I say over here that 4-cost centric comps are harder to play. The meta is dominated by 2-cost reroll. And you can excel with the other 4-costs, like for example, Nami. She's a decent like support unit. You play her a lot in Syndra actually, because she does a lot of support with her CC. Stuff like Ryze, Gwen, Olaf, and Varus are super hard to make work, and I'm just gonna cover the artifacts for them once they're actually more in the meta and people play them more. But for Karma, her best artifact by far will be Blighting Jewel. The reason why is Blighting Jewel does damage over time, and similar to Teemo from last set, Karma is I think one of 2 units that deals good DOT damage aside from Nora. Since her ult attaches like rifts to the enemy team, and it will reset the duration of these DOT instances every time she ults again, Blighting Jewel will do a lot of damage. I recommend building blue buff. Shojin is fine, but blue buff is better if you can greed it. And red buff as your 3rd item. Morel is also really good in Karma, but I think red buff is just insane. It's just attack speed, which she likes a lot. And you get so much utility with a heal that this combo, if you get it, is super good. Like, I promise. But Karma, you can just slap like AP items and it should be fine. The only other, like, I guess good one I would say is Zonius. I don't like it that much because she won't really, like, Karma being the last alive won't do like a lot of damage. But I guess if you need to put Zonius in her to survive a bit more or just have a leftover slot, it's not the worst on her. Like, she can definitely clutch out a few fights and utilizes the AP like decently, but it's not the best. And then for the other AP artifacts in Karma, I don't think there's anything that stands out or is super good. Like, you can Lich Bane's probably okay because she's a blue buff user, and Lich Bane allows the first attack from the holder to deal magic damage. It's not gonna be bad, but I don't think it's special. Same with DFG and Witsend. These are just like solid AP artifacts that are decent with her in the stats. It's not special, but hey, if you have to put it and your only AP carry is Karma, so be it, right? Then, you know, feel free. It's not gonna be the worst thing I've seen. Like, the only real egregious thing on Karma will be something like Ludens, because she doesn't deal any overkill damage. That's gonna be pretty bad. So I better not see any Karmas with Ludens Echo. Then next we have Fiora. Fiora is, as I said earlier, a secondary carry in a lot of comps and can excel and sometimes scam the backline. The best artifact on her by far is Silvermere Dawn. Fiora Silvermere Dawn is a match made in heaven because she's kind of slow anyways, low-key, and she utilizes the influx of AD that you get from the artifact despite locking her attack speed pretty well. Now, if you put Dawn on Fiora, she's obviously going to be really slow, but she does so much damage, trust me. If you have Silvermere Dawn and like these 2 items, BT, Sterax, you still need healing on her. But if maybe you even have a Titans, a GS, or whatever, she will just nuke the enemy team. It's really good. Then for the other artifacts, it's just solid artifacts for melee carries over here in the top. These ones I'll talk about in a bit, but these are trash. Mittens is just good for any melee carry, like I said. I don't think Fiora will utilize the attack speed as well. I think she prefers like either mixed stats or pure AD more. But Mittens is just going to be solid on most melee carries because of the increased movement speed and immunity to chill. So I would pick it for Fiora if you're primarying her or have her. That's Dense. That's Defiance. Also just good artifact for melee bruisers as well. It gives her healing, gives her damage mitigation. It's pretty good. You can build BT with it. You can build Titan, Sterax, any combination. It functions as Omnivamp as well, so you don't need healing, but it's still fine to build BT. And then, as I said earlier, Infinity Force is a flexible item. You can get it from an augment Freaky Friday that gives a bunch of Infinity Forces, but yeah, just a solid item that gives armor, MR, AD, a bunch of stuff that Fiora will use to a good degree. And then, the thing about Fiora is, I've tried both of these in PBE, and I've seen Prowler's Claw Fiora in action. It's not that good. Prowler's Claw is bad in Fiora because she already dashes, and Spectral Cutlass isn't that good because she'll dash away from the target if she doesn't one-shot them. So these 2 items, despite being good for melee bruisers or melee like carries, sometimes it's not good for Fiora. Then Collector is just a bad item for, I guess, non-AD carries and melee units because it doesn't really give you anything aside from pure AD and crit chance. Then lastly, I have Kalista. This one's super simple. What's interesting about Kalista is her itemization actually can change based on whether you play 3 multi-striker or 7. With 3 multi-striker, Gwynsus is going to be almost mandatory in her because she stacking attack speed to proc the chances for multi-striker. But with 7 or even like 9, God forbid, if you hit that, you should like win the game. you don't need Guinsoo's because she already procs the multi-striker chance so much. So you don't actually need Guinsoo Rage Blade. I think Asa had a tweet about it if you want to check. But for artifacts on Kalista, I don't think there are much you can do with her. The only one that performs decent in the stats is Fishbones. Same principle as Kog'Maw. She can like randomly throw spears to the backline, and when she rends with her ability, she'll just pull out and deal a lot of damage, so she can scam people. And she uses the mixed stats of attack speed and AD pretty well compared to other carries. But everything else I've seen on Kalista is pretty underwhelming. I would just say Fishbones is the main artifact you'll play on her. I think Wit's End is pretty bad in the stats, but I believe if you have Guinsoo's, Wit's End is not the worst thing I've seen. And I think people have thought and experimented with is Kalista with Corrupt Vampire Acceptor. Corrupt Vampire Acceptor basically disables a unit's ult, but gives them healing and attack speed. It's just bad in the stats. Turns out that Kalista's ult is better than necessary. Whenever you have Corrupt Vampire Acceptor on a unit, you always want to build Guinsoo's, but even though Kalista gains a lot of AD and healing, her ult is super important for damage, so it's not worth the trade-off. I would avoid that. Yeah, it's just mainly that for Kalista. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to be putting more artifact stuff out and videos. Please make sure to check out my channel for other videos and subscribe to be notified for anything new. Lastly, join my Discord if you want access to all my infographics, if you want to see all my infographics in one place, or just chill and talk about TFT. Alright guys, thank you. All right, thank you everyone. Goodbye.